For nearly 5 centuries, the Western world believed this was a lost city, swallowed by jungle, forgotten by time. They were wrong. Rising from the plains of what is now Cambodia stands the largest religious monument ever built. 5 towers shaped like lotus flowers, a moat wider than some rivers, bas-reliefs stretching for hundreds of meters, carved with battles, gods, and the cosmos itself. This is Angkor Wat, and it is only the centerpiece of something far greater. An empire that ruled mainland Southeast Asia for more than 6 centuries. An empire that built temples to rival the pyramids of Egypt. An empire whose capital, at its peak, may have housed close to 1 million people, making it one of the largest cities in the entire pre-industrial world. And then, the political heart of that empire vanished. How does a civilization this powerful disappear from the maps? What forces brought it down? And what does almost everyone get wrong about what really happened? This is the story of the Khmer Empire, the empire that built Angkor Wat and vanished. To understand how the empire fell, we have to start with a mystery. In the late 8th century, mainland Southeast Asia was not yet a unified power. It was a patchwork of small kingdoms, rival princes, shifting alliances, and a region under the long shadow of a powerful maritime force operating somewhere across the sea. And somewhere in that patchwork, a Khmer prince was returning home from exile, a young man whose name would echo for over 1,000 years. Jayavarman II. But here is where the mystery begins. The historical inscriptions say he came back from a place called Java. The problem is, no one is entirely certain which Java. It could have been the island of Java in modern Indonesia. It could have been the great maritime kingdom of Srivijaya, based on the island of Sumatra. Some historians have even argued the name referred to somewhere far closer to the Khmer heartland itself. The main written source for these events, an inscription carved in stone at a temple called Stok Kak Tum, was created roughly 2.5 centuries after Jayavarman lived. Enough time for fact to soften into legend. What we do know is this. Around the year 800, Jayavarman returned to his Khmer homeland. And in the year 802, on a sacred mountain called Mahendra Parvata, known today as Phnom Kulen, he performed a ritual unlike any before it. A high priest consecrated him as Devaraja, God King, and as Chakravartin, universal ruler. In a single ceremony, Jayavarman declared independence from the Javanese, dissolved the divine claims of all rival princes, and fused royal power with the gods themselves. The Khmer Empire was born. His successors moved the capital toward the Great Lake of Tonle Sap, to a region near modern Siem Reap. And there, they began something the world had never seen before. A city of water. Vast artificial reservoirs called barays, canals stretching for kilometers, a hydraulic network designed to capture every drop of the monsoon rains and feed an empire of rice. For 300 years, that system worked. And then came the man who would build the greatest temple the world had ever seen. His name was Suryavarman II. He came to the throne around the year 1113 after defeating a rival prince in single combat, leaping, according to one inscription, onto his opponent's war elephant in the heat of battle. He would rule for nearly 4 decades. And in that time, he would commission the construction of Angkor Wat. The temple was dedicated to the Hindu god Vishnu. It would also serve as Suryavarman's funerary mausoleum, which is why, unlike almost every other Hindu temple of its era, Angkor Wat faces west, the direction of the setting sun, the direction of death. The construction took roughly 3 decades. Tens of thousands of workers, stonemasons, sculptors, engineers, laborers, quarried sandstone from mountains to the north and floated it down rivers and canals to the site. They carved bas-reliefs stretching over half a kilometer in length. They built 5 towers shaped like lotus buds, rising to mirror the peaks of Mount Meru, the home of the gods in Hindu cosmology. But Angkor Wat was only the beginning. After Suryavarman's death, the empire descended into internal strife. In 1177, a fleet from the rival Cham kingdom sailed up the Mekong River, crossed the Great Lake of Tonle Sap, and sacked Angkor itself. It was the lowest point the empire had ever known. And then a new king rose, Jayavarman VII. Crowned in 1181, a Mahayana Buddhist where his predecessors had been Hindu, considered by most historians the most powerful king the Khmer Empire ever produced. He drove out the Cham invaders, he rebuilt the capital and renamed it Angkor Thom, the great city. At its center, he constructed the Bayon, a temple crowned with more than 200 enormous stone faces, gazing in every direction. Some believe these faces depict the Bodhisattva of compassion. Some believe they depict Jayavarman himself. He built temples for his mother, temples for his father, an extensive road network connecting his empire end to end, rest houses for travelers, and, according to the inscriptions, 102 hospitals scattered across his realm. By the early 13th century, the Khmer Empire stretched across parts of what is now Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, Vietnam, and Myanmar. Greater Angkor itself sprawled across roughly 1,000 square kilometers, confirmed in recent years by laser scanning technology. An urban network comparable in area to modern Los Angeles. Quite possibly the largest city in the pre-industrial world. In the year 1296, a Chinese diplomat named Zhou Daguan arrived at Angkor. He would stay for nearly a year, and he would write the only surviving first-hand account of life inside the Khmer Empire. The markets, the palace processions, the women who ran the trade, the festivals lit by torchlight. He was one of the last outside witnesses to the city at its full glory. Because by then, though no one inside the walls of Angkor knew it yet, the cracks had already begun to spread. The fall of Angkor did not happen in a single year. It did not happen for a single reason, and it did not happen overnight. It began with a change in faith. For centuries, the Khmer state had been built on the idea of divine kingship. Hindu cosmology and Mahayana Buddhism fused with absolute royal authority. But during the 14th century, a new form of belief swept the empire, Theravada Buddhism, a tradition that emphasized personal devotion over divine rulers, less god-king, more human ruler. The ideological foundation that had justified centuries of massive temple construction quietly began to dissolve. Then came the climate. In the late 20th century, scientists began drilling cores from ancient cypress trees in southern Vietnam. Trees so old they preserved a year-by-year record of rainfall stretching back over 7 centuries. What they found rewrote the history of Angkor. In the middle of the 14th century, the region was struck by a mega drought lasting decades. Then a generation before the fall, a second drought, shorter but more severe. The driest and third driest years of the entire tree ring record occurred back to back, only a few decades before Angkor's end. For a city built entirely on water management, this was catastrophic. The reservoirs began to dry, the canals began to fail, and when the rains finally returned, they returned as violent, high-magnitude monsoons that smashed through a hydraulic system already weakened by years of drought. Sediment poured in, canals choked, rice fields failed. And in the west, a new power was rising. In 1351, the Thai kingdom of Ayutthaya was founded, a kingdom modeled, ironically, on Angkor's own cultural traditions. Thai attacks on Angkor were recorded in 1369, again in 1389, each one weakening the empire a little more. At the same time, something subtler was happening inside Angkor itself. The urban elite were leaving. Land use in the city's center had begun declining roughly a century before the final fall. The center of gravity was shifting south, toward maritime trade, toward the great rivers leading to the sea. And then came the year 1431. The forces of Ayutthaya laid siege to Angkor Wat. The siege lasted, according to Thai chronicles, around 7 months. When it ended, the city fell. The royal court abandoned Angkor and shifted south, toward what would eventually become Phnom Penh. After more than 600 years, the political heart of one of the greatest civilizations in Southeast Asian history went silent. For nearly 500 years after that silence, the Western world told itself a story about Angkor. That story said the great city had been swallowed by jungle, that the people who built it had forgotten where it was, that it took a European explorer, a French naturalist named Henri Mouhot, to stumble through the vines in the year 1860 and rediscover what had been lost to time. But here is what they got wrong. Angkor was never lost. After the political court moved south in 1431, Buddhist monks continued to live at Angkor Wat. They swept the corridors. They lit the lamps. They preserved the temple as a place of pilgrimage, which is why, of all the great monuments of Angkor, this one survived in such remarkable condition. Portuguese traders documented Angkor in the middle of the 1500s. A Portuguese monk wrote a detailed account of his visit to Angkor Wat in 1586. In the 17th century, Japanese pilgrims traveled there and left inscriptions on the walls. Some of those inscriptions are still readable today. The Khmer people never forgot Angkor. Only the West did. What truly vanished was something different. The political center, gone. The god kings, gone. The vast hydraulic city of nearly 1 million souls, gone slowly over generations. But the people endured. Their descendants are the Cambodians of today. And Angkor Wat sits at the center of the Cambodian national flag, the only national flag in the world to feature a building. In recent years, laser scanning technology has begun to reveal just how vast this civilization truly was. Entire urban networks still hidden beneath the jungle, waiting to be mapped. The Khmer story is not one of mysterious disappearance. It is a story of climate stress, of political collapse, and of quiet, stubborn survival. Empires fall. People remain. And sometimes the most important thing a lost civilization leaves behind is the truth, waiting to be found.